We begin in Washington, D.C. and the meeting between Donald Trump and King Abdullah of Jordan. The King's visit to the White House comes just days after President Trump announced that America should take over Gaza, suggesting the 2 million Palestinians living there would leave for Jordan and Egypt. On Monday, Trump said he would withhold foreign aid from the longtime allies if they didn't accept his plan. Top UN human rights representatives have said Trump's plan amounts to ethnic cleansing. The forcible displacement of Gazans would be considered a war crime under the Geneva Convention.
To what you said.
And for more on this, we can cross straight over to our correspondent, Benjamin Alvarez Gruber, who's standing by in Washington, D.C. Benjamin, what can you tell us about this meeting between the president and the King of Jordan?
Both of them answered a couple of questions in the Oval Office. The King said that the question on taking in Palestinians, on Trump's recent, very controversial idea to forcibly displace Palestinians, is how to make it work. The King said in a way that it's best for everybody. The King also talked about 2,000 sick children that would be taken into the country, something that Trump called a beautiful gesture. Trump called Gaza a death trap, arguing that no one would want to stay. But he also stressed this over and over again, saying that Palestinians would have no right to return under his plan. He did not say during this meeting that it expected to be very difficult and very heated, considering the different positions that Amman and Washington have on this issue, as Jordan is already home to more than 2 million Palestinians, and both Jordan but also Egypt have firmly rejected this idea. In the Oval Office, when King Abdullah was asked about Trump's idea, he said, and I quote, "Let's wait until the Egyptians can present their plan, their ideas." And King Abdullah also said that Washington's idea would be discussed later. This meeting is happening behind closed doors right now. It's expected to be very difficult, as the gap between both positions is huge and involves stability and security issues, not just in Palestine, but also in Jordan.
Talk to us about the kind of leverage that the US has here. I mean, how much aid does the US give to Jordan?
When the US president was asked about his threat to withhold aid to Jordan in case they would not take even more Palestinians in, the US president said that would not be possible. He said, "I don't think we're above that, but Amman depends heavily on Washington for both military and also economic assistance. It is already reeling from Trump's 90-day aid pause that the State Department recently announced, because while Israel and Egypt were granted waivers, the almost $1.5 billion that Jordan gets every year remains frozen, pending a review by the U.S. administration on all foreign aid, because U.S. financial backing for Jordan is very important. Jordan is the fourth highest recipient of U.S. foreign aid. That was in 2023 with $1.72 billion. So the U.S. has some leverage there. We can imagine that President Trump will push King Abdullah into the direction of accepting even more Palestinians in Jordan.
Right. I mean, given this considerable leverage, I mean, is there a suggestion that King Abdullah may have to give in to the US demands, the US pressure?
Yeah, that remains to be seen. Unfortunately, there won't be a press conference afterwards to hear how this meeting went, what the outcome was. We can expect that the White House will try to, once again, sell this as a victory by the US president, forcing King Abdullah and forcing Jordan to accept even more Palestinians. But we also know that King Abdullah will have and is already having a very busy schedule here in the US Capitol, meeting with the defense secretary, also taking part at roundtable meeting representatives, companies, institutions, and also meeting tomorrow with the Secretary of State. So this will be a meeting there too. Marco Rubio is joining them at the White House meeting that's happening as we speak, and we can expect to hear more from both sides once this meeting is over.
DW's Benjamin Alvarez Gruber in Washington. Benjamin, thank you so much.
Well, Simon Mabon is Professor of International Politics at Lancaster University in the UK and specialises in the Middle East. I asked him which levers the US might employ to pressure Jordan into accepting his plan to resettle Palestinians.
One is aid. Of course, Jordan is one of the largest recipients of US aid, and that is hugely significant for the Jordanian economy. Jordan's economy has been on the proverbial rocks for a while. It's faced huge pressures, not least because a huge percentage of its income comes from tourism. And that, of course, has been badly hit by the conflict in Gaza. So Jordan needs the money. It needs that economic investment, that sort of cash stimulus, if you will, from the US. And the decision to withhold it, which Trump has taken, but we don't know if that's going to be a lasting thing or if that's going to be something that he's using for political ends, is hugely significant. So this is what I envisage will happen, that the Trump administration will say, you will take the Palestinians or we will stop with the aid. That would be the way, the real sort of bargaining chip, I guess, for the Trump administration has.
How do you think Jordan would respond to those threats?
Well, not particularly well. Jordan has been a long-standing US ally. It has US bases in the kingdom, in the Hashemite kingdom. Jordan has worked very closely with the United States on a range of different issues across the past few decades. But the Jordanian economy is facing serious pressures. Jordanian society is facing serious pressures. King Abdullah, as your earlier package mentioned, is facing serious pressures. There is widespread anger in Jordan at the state of play, at the political context, at the socioeconomic context, at the possibility of more Palestinians being forced into Jordan. There's over 2.5 million Palestinians in Jordan at present, and the Jordanian economy is suffering. Unemployment is around 24%, I believe, and obviously the influx of more people would put even more pressure on the economy and more pressure on the king. So I envisage that King Abdullah is going to have a very firm line in his meeting with Trump to say that, look, we cannot take any more refugees. We cannot take any more Palestinians. This Gaza plan of yours is a non-starter.
President Trump also has meetings scheduled with other Arab leaders. Is the Arab League likely to stand together on this issue?
Yeah, I think that the whole Middle East, if you will, including Iran, will stand firm and unified, which is a strange thing to say, but it will stand unified in this opposition to Trump's peace plan. We've seen condemnation from Turkey, from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, from the UAE, from Iran, from Jordan, from Egypt. These are all states that have had long and complex relations with each other, and yet they are standing united in a position that rejects the viability, the legality, the morality of this approach. So I think we'll see a pretty firm response from the Arab League. We'll see a firm response from the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and we'll see a continually firm response from Arab states, plus Iran, plus Turkey.
It's interesting to speculate how hard the US could actually push this plan, because I guess the last thing anyone wants is increased instability in the region.
Yeah, it's hard to think of increased instability when we've seen everything that's happened over the past 15 months or so. The devastation of Gaza, the destruction of Gaza, the destruction of South Lebanon, the rising tensions between Iran and Israel, and yet the Palestinian issue remains unresolved. And yet the breakdown of this ceasefire, which may happen, looks like it could provoke a further military escalation. So no one wants that. No one wants to see more violence. No one wants to see the further destruction of the region, not least the US, because the US does not want to have to invest either the financial capital or indeed the political capital to send troops there. So I think it's a really delicate moment right now, diplomatically, politically, economically, and for the people of the region who have suffered so very much over the past 15 months or so.
Before the Gaza war, Israel had significantly improved relations with some Arab countries. Where are we now, especially with Trump's seemingly absolute support for Israel?
Well, the sort of integration of Israel into Middle Eastern politics, into the sort of the diplomatic fold, if you will, was almost complete prior to October 7. There'd been a lot of talk about Israel normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia. That would be the real jewel in the crown, if you will, and a real sort of symbolic end to the quote-unquote Arab-Israeli wars that dominated the second part of the 20th century. We saw that there were peace deals with Egypt, with Jordan, the Abraham Accords normalized relations with the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, later Sudan. So you see that Israel has worked very hard diplomatically to reintegrate itself. And the US and others have tried to facilitate that. Arab states have worked very hard to work with Israel to improve relations culturally, politically, economically. But what has happened in Gaza has raised a serious number of questions about the future of the sort of the diplomatic viability of these agreements. There is widespread anger across the region, not necessarily from rulers who have been largely quiet about what is happening, bar some recent statements about Trump's plan in Gaza, but the people of the region who feel an affinity with the Palestinian cause for many different reasons are angry. And they're angry, and that can have reverberations politically and socially for what is happening within their own states and for across the region more broadly. So I think this poses a number of significant challenges for the politics of the region and the future of the region moving forward.
Clear as ever. Thank you for that. Middle East expert Simon Mabon from Lancaster University.
Thank you.